welcome everyone. Very excited to have you at today's webinar. And I'm very excited to have our guests. So first guest, Christy Tucker. She's a learning experience design consultant. She combines storytelling and technology to create scenario-based learning. She's been doing it for quite some time. She's the CEO and founder of Cinead Learning, and also a great blog called Experience e-learning. So if you have a chance, check that out. And we're going to hear from her in just a moment. And we also have Mike Todd with us. Mike, very happy to have you with us. He is the Chief Executive Officer at a company called Nearlife. And I first heard of Nearlife when they did this spectacular branching video of someone collapsing in I think it was a subway. And my colleague came into me and said, you have to see this. This is great. So he's been doing interactive video and VR authoring for quite some time. He's an entrepreneur, filmmaker, really glad to have him with us, and founder of Nearlife, which is going to be really interesting to look at. So we're going to start with Christy. Christy, we're going to look for you for some wisdom and insights. So take it away.
All right. Thank you for the introduction, Karl. So I'm going to start with a little bit of level setting about branching scenarios, just because, frankly, we aren't necessarily consistent about using terminology in our field. So let's kind of talk about kind of what we're talking about when we mean branching scenarios. So there are different definitions, but I would say we're talking about something that is interactive e-learning where you're practicing real decision-making skills. You make choices, there's realistic situations, and the decisions lead to different consequences, multiple paths, multiple outcomes are possible. So why do we do scenarios? They are that thing that to practice real life decision making. They give people a safe space to fail. When people practice and have those experiences, then it helps trigger their memory and leads to better retention of the training. Branching scenarios can also engage emotions. You put people into a story, you make them make choices and see the consequences of their actions, both good and bad, and have that emotional impact of a story where things go right or wrong. Scenarios can also accelerate expertise. Basically, that is something that Ruth Clark talks about in her book on scenario-based e-learning, where you can get people to the point of competency, to the point of mastery of a skill faster by using scenarios and giving them that opportunity to practice making the kinds of decisions that you really want them to make on the job. One of my favorite quotes from David Merrill is that learners are motivated when they can see the relevance of what they are learning. And that's what branching scenarios do, right? You're putting them into that situation. So when do we use scenarios? I have a couple of criteria that I use for figuring out when we're going to do branching scenarios. And you don't necessarily need to have all four of these, but I do find that it's helpful to have at least two or three of these. And if not, maybe you want to pick some other training method, some other form of scenarios. So something that requires multiple coordinated decisions. And in other words, you have to make more than one choice in this. If it doesn't meet that, you probably want to do some other form of training, right? Do a mini scenario, do something else. And especially for situations where the first thing you do affects what's available later. So conversation simulations are a really common one because what you say first in a conversation affects what choices you're going to say next. Something that is a strategic skill rather than procedural. It requires more than a checklist. It's not routine or repetitive. Think of strategic like if you gave three people the same directions for this, would they have the same results every time? Or would you get three completely different things, right? You ask three different web developers to build you a website, you're going to get three really different things. That's when branching scenarios are a great tool. It's also effective when you have shades of gray. It's not just black and white. There's nuances about it, or things where it's risky to practice that skill. And risky can be just in terms of finance or risk of relationships being damaged, not just necessarily a safety concern. So, a couple of examples. All these these first two are definitely built before AI. So, first one actually was something that I built in Twine quite a while ago. This is a very basic scenario, and it really is just like the choices and the flat characters on screen. You make a couple of choices, there's feedback, there's a bit of scoring, and so the feedback has a couple of levels at the end. And that's what this one is. And it's not bad for what it was. This is another one, and I'm gonna bring this one up actually. So this is something that I built in Storyline. I mapped it out in Twine, built it in Storyline. This was built, I think, 2017, 2018. So it does look a little dated at the moment. If you, this is on training instructional designers to handle requests. If you make bad choices, you get a restart. If we have some questions and then have this conversation back and forth to talk to a potential client and have this conversation um, where there's sort of a cutscene here with a conversation. That's another branching scenario. And I think Mike, keep this one in mind when Mike gets to his. And then I also have a project management scenario. Actually, I should have stayed on my browser. Um, this is one that was one of the first ones that I did use some AI for it. I did use a little bit of AI in helping writing a little of the dialogue, but I also used images. Now this is 2024 AI images, so there's definitely some of that 2024 AI image look to it. But I could, in fact, get these characters in different poses, even even 2 years ago. This was possible. So this is one of the places where I've gotten into AI for that. I'm also using AI for so the consistent character images. We can do a lot more actually with it now than what I did in that scenario. Um, 2 years 2 years ago. But we can get images of people in different outfits, different locations. We can put characters and scenes with different people in different settings. Um, I do end up switching tools quite a bit to get the results that I've got, although tools are getting a lot better, and Nano Banana has actually gotten good enough to be um, good for consistency for a lot of things and is starting to replace a bit more of what I've done. We also have Clark Aldrich and I were just chatting about this on LinkedIn this week about how you can have all of these different styles with AI images. You just have a lot more flexibility in what's possible because you can generate these with AI. This was all basically the same prompt about a woman with shoulder length auburn hair working at a computer with a dark blue shirt in a modern office and just changing the style with a real simple prompt. And you can see what kind of variety you can get very quickly. And then there are several AI image tools now that can do consistent styles once you get it. And as Clark says, you can give clients the ability to choose the art which they like. I've used LLMs for helping write scenarios bit by bit, and I think that we'll show a little bit more of that. I know Mike's going to do this too, and I don't want to take too much of the time. Um, but I do think we're at this cusp right now where we can use AI to speed up writing the scenario, to help write the choices. We can use it for developing the media, for images, for video. AI video generation has been advancing leaps and bounds. I swear every new week there is some new advancement in video that's been coming out. And so I think that there's ways to do that. I think we're also looking at, the potential for more open-ended things where you can have those scenarios and have chat or have voice, where you can do things where I've seen where some of the things where instead of just having those three forced choices, that you will have voice response. And then behind the scenes, it'll evaluate, okay, well, I was expecting one of these three responses. What is it? And then adapt the audio response back. We're starting to get to the point where we have those options to do something more, to do those more flexible and more personalized things. Branching scenarios were already more personalized than a lot of the linear traditional learning we do. But this is we have some possibilities here to do more. So, Carl, what questions did we have while I ran through my quick intro
Yeah,
here?
no, Christy, that was fantastic. So, one person has asked about if you've experimented with video generation for branching scenarios, because that's gotten better and
Hmm.
it's improved massively. So, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, I think I really need to I need to I want to like set aside some time to actually put together one of these. I want to actually go back and rebuild one of these older scenarios and do some videos with it. Um, There are a couple of ways to do this. Some of them are the avatar tools. If you subscribe to Carl's YouTube channel, where he's got some samples of this, you did Hey Jen for
Yeah, I
your
did. I did actually Synthesia and
or
Colossian, so
Synthesia.
I've done
Okay.
all
All
three
right.
or three.
Okay, so Synthesia, Colossian, Hey Jen. I was gonna say there's several of these that'll do the an avatar of yourself. And so I have so those are definitely a possibility. Those do tend to be like a straight on narrator avatar. There are other tools like Hedra and Infinite Talk that I have also played with. Like I made one that was a conversation back and forth between two people with Infinite Talk. And I did it, you start with an image, and so the images were two instructional designer and a client on the phone together, and they're sort of facing sideways. So you have one person facing this way and the other one facing this way so that it looks more like that cut back and forth. And so I will say I think that those tools and the voice singing with 11 Labs or some other AI voices, the AI voices have come so far. They're amazing now. So I think I think there's definitely some possibilities. I don't have an example that I have out on my blog. I've done little snippets of videos on my blog, and I can find those links and add them in here, but in our
Yeah,
chat.
great. Thanks, Christy. So another
Yeah.
question, then we'll cut to Todd,
Mhm.
was well, two more. Maybe what does AI do about accessibility? And then typically, do you have the SME write the branching scenario, or how does that work?
I basically never have a SME write a branching scenario. I always do it. I feel like writing branching scenarios is such a specific skill that I don't feel like it is fair to ask the SME to do my job for me. So I interview the SMEs, I review materials, and I think that that is the better way to do it. I have a set of questions that I ask to talk about, well, what are the mistakes that people make? What are the consequences? Where do people get confused? And so I gather information and then I use that to fill in on a branching scenario. Now, I will also say I have a client right now where I'm doing a series of branching scenarios for them, and there are some places where I did not get sufficient information from the SME on this, and I absolutely am using AI to say, okay, what would actually happen in this work environment? What does this work environment look like? Where would these two people be actually talking together? And to try to fill in some of those details. Clearly, obviously, I'm having my SME go back and verify that, because the AI can be wrong, but I am using the AI to fill in things. And sometimes I am having the AI do some drafting of the choices, but only with my my input of like, here's the mistakes, here's the information I have from the SME. These are the kinds of things that we're looking for, and always with me really evaluating, and I tend to do step by step. So,
Yeah, no, thank you very much. So great, great
mhm,
information. We've got a few more questions, but let's cut to Todd first, and then we'll
yeah,
come back and gather the
mhm.
questions. So Todd's going to talk to us a little bit about, dive a little bit into some tool. So Todd.
Okay, thank you very much there, Karl. Let me just share my screen, everybody. So, as you explained earlier, Karl, we've been in I suppose, the branching scenario space, the interactive video space. That's really how we started for a number of years. We actually began must be 10 years ago now, actually in the humanitarian response area, because in that particular field, you have a lot of simulations where people do real live role play. You've got to make decisions under pressure and all the rest of it. So we started out doing projects. I think we had a USAID and a UK government funded project around that, how humanitarian aid workers could navigate difficult and challenging situations safely. And that's how we started over the years. Our experience of designing these type of learning projects led us to where we are today, which is where we have our own platform, which is really designed around making the whole process of creating branching scenarios easier. So if just to bear with me, if you were to look at a traditional model. So we've been really trying to, because as Christy said there are so many component parts you can use to help with your your design. But we wanted to try and integrate as best we could, leverage the power of AI that's out there to see if we could make even the process simpler than we already tried to make it. So traditionally in our tool, I'm just going to do this as a test. What you would do is, let me just open this. What you would do is you could drag and drop your nodes here and you'd create your own media. So whether it was like images created by AI or something else, or video you'd made, you would traditionally build this out. It might look something like this with a branching experience, and then you're going to add your own options here. You could have button choices, you could have things like hotspot areas of a screen to interact, and all the things. So we've been developing down this pathway for a number of years. But as the power of AI began to increase, what we were trying to leverage, I suppose, and make the most of is the way we saw the type of thing that Christy's talking about. People would use prompt-based dialogue in something like ChatGPT or whichever tool they prepared, and they would be looking to kind of build out some sort of framework there. So what we wanted to see is, could we really use that as a means of making it even easier than it was already. So if I just go here a second, if I just create a new project, we were testing earlier because Christy had shared some of the things that she was going to talk about. So the what you've got here is kind of your prompt-based dialogue. So we were looking at the idea that if you were to, forgive me, I'm trying to save time to maximize the webinar here, but this is a pre-prepared prompt, and it really is kind of a prompt based upon the branching scenario that Christy showed, where you've got a learning designer who's got to deal with the client brief and figure out how the best to approach it. So I could enter this, and then so this is leveraging here the kind of like dialogue based power that ChatGPT's got, so you can have a discussion. So we've got the prompt, we've got the basic concept, and just give it a moment while it thinks about it. And it's going to, and we've looked at branching design. We have seen that other people create other interactive experiences within our tool. So, it could be anything from a tour, it could be something like even an escape room. But I think the basic, solid, well-established principle of having an effective branching narrative is just so well established in learn education, has clearly got the ability to have the as Christy said, you can test decision making in a safe space, safe environment. So this is helpful on the webinar. It's just taking slightly longer than I would hope to generate this, but I'm in a university room here and I'm on their Wi-Fi, and I think it's too slow to generate. So it's not giving the best example for people to learn from. My colleague here is on the webinar. Are you on the tool, Josette?
I can be.
Yeah, it is. I literally just built that other one out before the webinar. So well, I've moved to this room. Anyway, you can see how it works here on Josette's model. I would just generate Josette to give the idea. I mean, you've seen the work that I worked out one of.
I'll just say professional tone. I'll skip that and click generate.
But what you can do is you can obviously have the ongoing, what I was showing you earlier is from the original brief that we put in from Christy's AI, is that you can generate, basically you can work at the level of the conceptual idea. Are you going to kind of like, and have the back and forth, but then you can actually also generate the actual structure. So even if this was just a storyboard, because you talked, Christy, about some subject matter experts not necessarily being really capable of, so this is without the images. I would just generate the images just to show just how you can kind of do the batch images. But even if you're using this to get started or to storyboard, like you talked about using ChatGPT, Christy, in terms of the conceptual stuff, getting the ideas right, how can you do it effectively? It just allows you to communicate interactive concepts more clearly with people, to leverage that power of kind of AI. So it's, what we've tried to do, I mean, we've been working, as I say, in this space for like nearly a decade now. We've trying to harness those things that AI does well, so that you can, help with the design, storyboard more easily, communicate more easily with clients. And then you've got a working prototype. And you can still, as I was showing earlier, if once kind of Giuseppe has been through this process of generating the initial iteration, you can then go back, edit it. You could add things like delayed consequences by adding achievements and conditions. So you can get more sophisticated. You can change, you can edit, but it's a massive time-saving device in terms of conceptualizing and sharing concepts with stakeholders and being able to build something more quickly. So I think the advantage of AI, if used well, is that it will make the technical design elements easier and empower the kind of the creative components. I think that's really the key. How can you empower the creativity of the designer and make the technical, almost administrative side of building a branching scenario, an interactive scenario, and make it more manageable. So if you, I mean, I would just publish that. I think we get the idea, Giuseppe. If you just jump out to that, just play it from the beginning so you can see it, how it kind of plays through, and then we'll wind up. I think my mini technical glitch, which I apologize for there, with being on my university public Wi-Fi. But anyway, you hopefully you've been able to see the principles of how it works, and how by combining the media generation with the conceptual stuff with the kind of diagrammatic, that's the space we've been working in, and that's the R&D that we've been doing really around branching design and leveraging the power of AI. So I took up a few minutes there, Karl and Christy. Apologies in terms of the technical glitch, but all's well. Hopefully it ends well.
Yeah, no worries. We all live through technology, work with technology, and I always say technology doesn't fail. Everybody's like, before your presentation, are you ready to go? And I said, of course, but technology doesn't fail before your presentation. It fails during the presentation. So there's almost no point in checking, because I've had many experiences where I've checked and checked and checked, and as soon as I hit go, that's where. But a couple of questions. So one is for you, Mike. Once the AI generates the initial branching scenario, can you then add AI generated extra branchings?
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. At the moment, the way it works, and we did a lot of R&D around this, at a certain point, you have to leave the AI behind. So you can add in new AI images, you can add in new AI components. What you can't do once you break the initial dialogue though with the diagram, then you kind of like into manual editing with that, if that makes sense. As of now, the technology is not quite at the stage where it can conceptualize the diagram and you can edit the diagram. So you can like when Giuseppe was building out the diagram there, you can change the diagram while you're in AI mode. So you can say like add an extra outcome there. So you could have multiple iterations as part of the dialogue. What you can't do is publish, if you like, or go to manual edit mode and then revert back.
Another question was, can you upload reference materials to give the AI model, more content to generate it from? And then a couple of people have asked about are there credits or tokens, or how does that work from a resource perspective? Are you paying for tokens or credits, or is it subscription model? How does that work?
Yeah, so with our tool, we're really, I think, and I think this is generally true of most tools now. You kind of work moving towards a usage model. Yeah, so it works on the basis of tokens. So you've got kind of like an image. I think it's kind of one credit, and then videos is X number of credits, and then VR is X number of credits. The video is the most costly to generate at the moment, so the kind of the credit usage would match with that. But really, yeah, we're trying to tie the model to. You don't need to. I mean, with our tool, and it's for other tools as well, you don't have to use AI. It's an optional assistant, if you like, to helping you as a time-saving device and maybe as a kind of a creative brainstorming partner. But yeah, that's how it works in terms of the image and the media generation. So when you have a subscription, you would have X number of credits, and then you can draw down on those to create images, the video, or the VR, depending on the model that you have. So that's how it works.
Great, fantastic, Mike. Appreciate that. So a question came in for Christy, kind of on the flip side. So maybe if somebody has a little tiny, teeny weeny budget, and using Twine and AI and visuals, like how does all that work together? I know, Christy, when you first showed me Twine, I'm like, wow, you can put these really cool visuals into Twine. I didn't even know you could do that. So you want to
Yeah.
explain a little bit about how that works?
Yep. So Twine is a free open source tool. That's the one that very first scenario, and also the project management scenario that has the project management dashboard at the bottom. That's all in Twine. So a couple of things that I've done with AI to help my Twine look better. One is generating the character images. And there's a number of tools that you can use to do that. Another one is Twine outputs to HTML. And so you can do CSS to format it and change the formatting of things. And I had and frankly, there's code within Twine built in for Twine too. So I actually ended up for a project last year, did some CSS, found somebody's template that I could customize, but it didn't quite do what I wanted, and I absolutely used one of the LLMs to help me figure out my CSS code. And so since Twine is HTML and CSS, it's good at writing CSS code and then troubleshooting the CSS code. And so that is absolutely a more manual process than what Mike demonstrated, but for the budget of free or the LLM you already have, it's definitely a possibility. I will also note that if you're working with Twine, ChatGPT and Claude and probably all the other major LLMs can output things into TWE format, which you can input into Twine. So I can start building. So I've did something where I built out one pathway of something in Twine to get the voice right, exported it out to TWE, which is basically a text export for compiling, put it in a text file, uploaded it into Claude and said, okay, matching my writing style, write another path for this and put it in TWE format so that then I could import it right back into Twine and map it all out. Again, slower process than what Mike showed, but it is something where then I have more control. And depending on, the project and the output and what people are looking for. Like there's no tracking built in with this in Twine, where I'm sure Mike could be happy to show you all of you can get a lot of data out of near life. But so yeah, I would say that Nancy, yes, there's absolutely a couple of ways to do it. Images, CSS. Um, you frankly could do AI audio. That's gotten pretty and add voice in things which you can do with Twine as well.
Yeah, no, fantastic, Chrissy. I just have a quick Twine ChatGPT Claude story. So one of my students was having trouble with Twine, wasn't getting the right color in the background. So I took the code, put it into ChatGPT, and said, fix this. And it said, oh, sure. And I ran it, didn't work. Ran it again, didn't work. Fixed it again, didn't work. Finally, I put it into Claude, worked right away. I said, oh, here's your problem. This is this variable, not that kind of variable. So if it doesn't work, switching LLMs sometimes can be a lot of help and can really help move you to the next level. So don't be afraid to mix and match LLMs. um, Mike, there's a couple of questions for you. One about if you've got audio and video generation in there, if you've got a chatbot for the learner, and then finally, if you're willing to reveal some of the models that you use to generate images or videos, or if that's proprietary. So I know
Sure.
lots
No,
of questions, but there you go.
I'm happy to share. I'm happy to. By the way, in the back, I was just saying, so these, would you believe it? It's working now, so the Wi-Fi has improved here. So I can. This is the scenario we were talking about earlier, where from the prompt with Christie's, I know we went through it with Giuseppe, but while it's generating the diagram, so it gives me the breakdown. I can have a dialogue based stuff. So we leverage different elements of AI for different purposes. So we do have chatbots. I didn't show you that earlier because although relevant to branching design, the way we use them, you can kind of add a character either in a particular node or in a particular scene, or have them across the whole experience. So we use actually Meta's LLM for that, which is the Llama model. Then for this, you're seeing we use OpenAI. So, and when we go here, when I'm going to the creating the media, which Stefano was showing earlier, when I go to creating the media, we're actually leveraging Nano Banana on so Google's images. So we do have, he tells me on the credits there. So we do have the ability to generate video. As I say, at the moment, the videos with VO, the Google's video generation. So I could change the images here. You see. And then this would still have character consistency. So when I comment on one, but you can't do this with the video. We've not got time to go through it all, but you would generate videos on a single basis, and then so at the moment you can only batch generate the 2D ones. You do VR images as a single image or videos as a single video, but you can use them. So we like a hybrid model. We take the AI LLM that we think works best for a particular use case. But I mean, I could very quickly show you because I know it was International Women's Day this week. I think we had a project from, where is it here, where you had, you see there's a number of characters here you can speak to for advice. So you could add, you've got an AI character. So you could add like an advisor or a guide. You can give them a character. So you can use this as part of a branching scenario, and there's someone you could ask advice for as you go. So in this case, it's less branching, it's more a bit linear. But if I just play from here, I could ask Maya Angelou, for example, how can I negotiate equal pay? So it's just another, we're always looking at ways we can add layers of interactivity, make it more involved, make it more experiential. So yes, long answer to your question, but you can have these different AI components.
Great, fantastic. I think that's all the questions you have right now. Oh, there's one question about consistency across videos, if there is ability to do that as well.
So I was just saying that at the moment, certainly with our tool, it is improving. I think you were talking about this earlier, Christy. In our experience, we're constantly like iterating around this. At the moment, you're kind of like generating individual videos. So you could combine images with a video sequence, and that would work quite well. You can use some tools specifically focused around character consistency in videos as a means of doing it in the way that you can with images. It's a bit harder to do that, but that's somewhere we want to be. But it's like videos are also short at the moment, like 8 seconds. But you can see, like you mentioned Synthesia before. We notice a lot of people use things like Beyond and Synthesia with our tool, so you can generate images where you've already got that consistency built in specialist tools. So it's all evolving rapidly, as we're all well aware.
And I will just adding on to that, I have seen because I follow a lot of people who are in that AI media creation space to figure out, that learn about image and video generation stuff. And I have seen some people talking about using some of the video models to generate the images in order to get more realistic first frames and last frames for their because there are actually the video models are actually sometimes better at assembling those scenes. One of those examples I had with images from a scenario was actually I put it into Runway, even though I wasn't using video generation. But Runway has a model where you can put in the character images and put them into a scene, and it can combine those elements to get the first frame image. So I think as that continues to advance, it'll help with the consistency of things and you'll get that better. And again, video generation literally is something new is happening every week. So the
Yeah.
consistency is trickier, I think, in it's really good in images right now and not quite there in video. Not without a lot of review and iteration. So
Yeah, no, great, fantastic. So, great information, both of you. We could probably talk all day. Clark has a really good comment in there. I remember Clark. When I went through evaluating, I was always look for the longest answer, right, and that would almost always be the right one. So this has come a long way. So, any final words before we wrap up and finish this fantastic webinar?
No, it was good to, hopefully we'll have a chance to talk again. And it's such an evolving and rapidly changing space. I think everyone is trying to see how things can work, how they can work better. I know we've always been kind of an R&D focused, innovation led company. So, I mean, it's on the one hand, it's very exciting to be in this space. On the other, it's like moving so quickly that, you have to, as Christy's saying, be aware what's out there, be on top of your research, and really make the most. But the potential is huge, and it's not something that is going to happen. It's happened, and it's happening, and it's here, and we're all coming to terms that everyone who's involved in education and learning, I think, can see it's one of the areas where it's got the biggest potential, but it's making the human agency still at the forefront in terms of leveraging its power rather than delegating completely to it.
yeah. Yeah, and I think, there's been some comments about the worry of the hallucinations and the accuracy of things. And I do think that the models where you build something and then you can review it and you can manually edit it, right? If AI helps you speed up your first draft, then you've already gotten some advancement. If AI lets you do more with images, part of what I find with images is frankly that I have better quality images with AI than I possibly could have had with cutout images and things before. Like, it's not just about the speed, it is that I have a better learner experience with AI images than what I could do before. And so I think that that's all a possibility. I do think, you have to watch for things, right? Every AI model that's out there tends to make the wrong answers too obvious if you're not really prompting carefully. And frankly, even when you do prompt carefully and give it good references, you still have to check for it, right? Because it's trained on all of the crappy multiple choice questions that are out there in the world where the wrong answers are too obvious. So, you have to watch for things. This is absolutely something where you are the director and the AI is your tool. And so that I think is an important thing to keep in mind with this, that don't let the AI do all of the thinking. So,
Yeah,
and I will shamelessly plug my blog in here. I know Carl mentioned it earlier. I have a page of collected posts on storytelling and scenarios, and another page of posts on AI, including a lot of image generation work. So if you are looking for more, I have quite a bit there. I know some of you are already familiar, having looked through the participant list.
I'm certainly signed up, Christy.
fantastic. And I echo the idea of, we are the directors, we frame what's happening, and then AI is just a tool that we can use to get to where we need to be. So thanks everybody for coming. Fantastic participation. Love the chat. We finally got that going. So sorry about that little hiccup, but once we got that going, really engaging chat. We want to thank everybody for your insights, for your questions. If you have any questions about developing, talk to Christy. If you want to see more of the software, definitely talk to Mike. It's a really interesting piece of software. We've used it in our classes, and it's been wonderful. So thanks everybody for coming, and have a great rest of your day, night, evening, or morning.